Nick, what do you make of what Kyrie had to say?
I mean, he's calling out the Celtics for their game plan against Kemba Walker, even though his history's wrong. You said this before the show, C, and Kyrie's been on the Celtics for 2 years. Kemba Walker has had 2 good games against the Celtics. Once earlier this year when he went for 43, I think, and then this game Saturday. But even in Saturday's game, he only had 18 points through 3 quarters. Now, he was spectacular in the fourth quarter, but Kemba, since Kyrie's been there, 20, 24, 23, 43, 21, 21 in that game at 36. But that is Kyrie, to me, taking a totally unnecessary shot at the coaching staff and the defensive game plan because the guy he's supposed to be checking went off because his matchup outplayed him, particularly in the fourth quarter. And for the Celtics, a season that's had a bunch of low points, 6-10 now since the All-Star break. Since the All-Star break, 1-8 against playoff teams. Now there's 12 teams in the league with a better record than them. This is the latest of the low points. That was Saturday. They then lost again yesterday in a game that just didn't have the post-game controversy.
Yeah, there's a number of reasons why I don't have concern with this. Is in covering the NBA and knowing the NBA and knowing the style the NBA is now. Now it's not, unless you're a 5, a center, you're not going to be matched up with the other guy playing your same position. They have too much pick and roll, too much motion, and Kyrie is typically not going to guard the primary scorer in the backcourt. So unless you do, like, head-to-head numbers, how many times was Kyrie on him and everything to be able to break it down that way? That's the reason why these guard. That's why Harden, it's hard to guard him. That's why if they play OKC, man, they're not going to have to worry. Paul George is not going to be able to guard him so much. That's why they have set so many pick and rolls. So you can get the type of matchup on the court that you want. A lot of times I did interviews after games, and people thought as if I was calling someone out. And it wasn't. I wasn't calling anyone out. I was just stating the obvious. Kyrie is saying, when we are playing against the Hornets, all right, we need to do something. Bill, take the ball out of Kemba's hand. He shouldn't beat us. We should allow the other players to beat us. A lot of times we played against Jerry Rice a couple times. This is one reason why Terrell Owens doesn't like me. Him and J.J. Stokes, Terrell Owens, had big games late in the game. And I came out after the game and said, you know something, I would understand if Jerry Rice beat us. He's the best wide receiver. But the other guys, I don't know who they were. And at the time, they were no-name guys. I wasn't calling out the defense. I was just basically stating the obvious, that you have to take away Jerry Rice. These other guys who I don't know, they end up dominating us. So, to me, he wasn't calling him out. And when you are calling out a coach, typically you have the facts together, like you know. So Brad Stevens is not going to take offense to this because he knows it's not true. Kemba hadn't been dominating them, and this was just a bad quarter. So he's not calling out the coach. He's not standing up for the coach. He's just saying, late in the game, we got to take the ball out of Kemba's hand. So to me, it's not something personal. People who aren't used to interviews and everything, they will take it as this. When I read the headlines, I said, people are going to say Kyrie called out the coach, when many a times I stated what was going on in the game, and because it was contrary to what the strategy was, I wasn't questioning the offense and defensive coordinator.
Well, listen, I obviously can't speak to your motivation in your interviews, but watching that, I totally disagree with you. I think Kyrie, when he added, he paused. He said, I don't know why we didn't blitz him. And then he paused and added, like every other team in the league does. That is a shot. That is, in my eyes, there's a strategy to take the ball out of Kemba Walker's hands when he's their best player. We have a defensive strategy where we don't do that to anyone. They don't even do that to Steph. And they've had good success against the Warriors. I don't know why we didn't do it. I would understand why you wouldn't do it to Steph because the Warriors have a bunch of different options. I get the point Kyrie's making. He might even be right that they should do it. But to me, it was very clear.
I just think that sometime in the NBA, the reason why the players aren't happy is because we go through this line of questioning so many times where how can they answer the right way? Kyrie did not call out the coach, all right? He was questioning the strategy at the end to help us win the game. That's why guys don't like doing interviews, because all the time it gets construed as something else. What can I comment on then?
Well, you see, it's fine that we disagree on this, but this isn't nitpicking. Oh, he said it like this is very clear. There's a million.
Unless we know from Kyrie that he called it out, we're guessing. And I've done so many interviews that people, after the interviews, swore up and down I was calling someone out. And I was stating the obvious in the game. They can't let Kemba go off in the fourth quarter. And that was obvious. Maybe we should double team him. Now, what people call calling out, making the coach look bad, the coach being paid a lot of money, and he's an adult. The coach is not a kid. And the star player actually talking about strategy, that's what we want after the game, compared to these baked-in, just same old answers from the players. The reason why they didn't win this game was because Kemba dominated in the fourth quarter. And Kyrie basically said that.
And regardless of whether he's calling the coach out or not, because we're not going to agree on it, what we all know is the Celtics right now, they can't beat good teams. They are now, granted, Al Horford didn't play this week, and he's very important to them. They are going to finish the season amazingly as the 5th seed. Indiana's going to stay ahead of them, even though Oladipo is going to have missed about half the season. And they are going to be a team with a losing road record, is now going to be on the road to start every playoff series they play in, and if they get past the first round, they're going to be staring at a Milwaukee team that's been the best team in basketball all year in round 2. For Kyrie and the Celtics, whether he has beef with Brad Stevens or not, you can start counting down the days that Kyrie Irving's got left as a Celtic. How many games they got left? Okay, so they've got 8 games left, plus call it 5 to 10 in the postseason.
Maybe that's what the story is compared to Kyrie. Because I know someone on the coaching staff is responsible for the offensive strategy and the defensive strategy. When they play good defense, they talk about that coach. They didn't talk about it this time, so now Kyrie could have been talking about the assistant coach. We can't just assume that him and Brad Stevens have some type of beef because we think that Kyrie is leaving.
That one we don't disagree with. To me, it was clearly calling out the coaching staff, but I can't say it was specifically Brad Stevens. And I don't think this is the reason. Some beef with Brad Stevens is not going to be why Kyrie leaves. But this team is not going to reach anywhere close to its preseason expectations. They will be fortunate to make it to the second round, which means you got about at most 18 games left with Kyrie Irving as a Celtic.
If you look at all the key components to the Celtics, that being their front office, Danny Ainge, that being Brad Stevens, their head coach, that being their starting lineup and their first 3 to 4 subs, the only person that's had a good year is Kyrie Irving. So we need to hear more from Kyrie Irving. Danny, not a good year. Brad Stevens, not a good year. Starting 5 outside of Kyrie, not a good year. Bench players, not a good year. So Kyrie Irving, the only one doing something in Boston.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.